What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be doing my favorite things, talking about the greatest of all time. But this time we're going to be doing it a little bit differently, as we're not going to be focusing on ranking players. This time we're going to be looking at the GOAT starting 5, more specifically my GOAT starting 5, the greatest starting 5 you could possibly assemble. Now there's a couple of ways you could go about assembling this team. You could just pick the best players of all time and just put them together, and that could be your 5. Now, I'm not against that per se, but for this video, I want to actually try to build a team that would somewhat be able to work together and be a cohesive unit in this hypothetical starting 5 scenario. So just keep that in mind as you watch this video. It's not necessarily the best player at each position, it's more of what I think would be the greatest overall team, not collection of talent. So with all that being said, let's start the video. Now at the 1 spot, the point guard position, I would take 2016 Steph Curry, and Steph this year averaged 30.1 points per game, that led the NBA, 6.7 assists, 5.4 boards, 2.1 steals, which also led the NBA, and had 50, 45, and 90 splits. And this version of Steph Curry, I believe, is the best version of Steph, and this is the year he really established himself as one of, if not the best players in the NBA. And he was already coming off an MVP season in 2015, but in 2016, he took it to a whole nother level, making 402 threes, which is still an NBA record. He became the only player in league history to average 30 points per game on over 45% shooting from 3, and also his team won 73 games, still an NBA record. And Steph was doing this while only playing 34.2 minutes per game, the 5th lowest for an MVP in NBA history. And when you look at 2016 Curry, he was an elite shooter, a great passer, he's a great ball handler, the 2nd best ball handler behind Kyrie, he had a high basketball IQ, and most importantly, he was unselfish. And that's one thing that gets overlooked when talking about Steph. He is one of the most unselfish superstars in NBA history, and he goes out of his way to adapt and conform to teammates. And this year, this Warriors team was one of the best passing teams in NBA history, and that was in large part due to Steph Curry. Now, one more important thing with 2016 Curry is the attention that the defense has to give him at all times because of his shooting ability. And that's one of the things at this point in time not many teams could adapt to. Steph was pulling from 35 feet and shooting it at a very good rate, and the attention he demands on a nightly basis helps all of his teammates. The gravity he has, it expands the floor, and the spacing in the lane, it opens up when you have Steph Curry on your team. So that's a couple of reasons I would take Steph Curry in my GOAT starting 5. Now moving on to the shooting guard spot, I would have 1993 Michael Jordan. And this version of Michael Jordan in the playoffs would average 35 points per game, 6.7 boards, 6.0 assists, 2.1 steals on 48, 39, and 81 splits. And I do want to note that 39% from 3, that was on 3.8 attempts, which is some of Michael Jordan's highest volume shooting postseason runs in his entire career. And the reason I chose 93 Jordan, I think this version is him at his peak athletically, physically, and just mentally. This Michael Jordan was on a whole nother level. Also, this Jordan was probably the most explosive and the best scoring version of himself. I think from the mid-range, the 3, the post, the free throw line, he could score from anywhere and everywhere on the court. Also, he was a great passer, a great rebounder, a good defender overall, a good on-ball, good off-ball, had a high defensive IQ, offensive IQ. Anything you want in a basketball player, this version of Michael Jordan, he had that. And when it came to being clutch, this version of Jordan was possibly the most clutch player in NBA history, as when it came to clutch scoring in the NBA Finals, he had a Finals record 30 clutch time points while shooting 52% from the field and 89% from the free throw line. Also, I would like to note how this version of Jordan was consistently great in every round of the playoffs. He averaged 34 points per game in the first round, 31 in the second round, 32 in the conference finals, and an NBA record 41 points per game in the NBA Finals. And just going back to this version of Jordan's skill set, I think this is the perfect blend of a high basketball IQ player. He had already won 3 championships, combined with a peak athletic ability, which is 93 Jordan. And if you put this version of Jordan with 2016 Curry, that in my opinion is the greatest backcourt in NBA history. You have the greatest shooter of all time, combined with the greatest scorer of all time. So that is why I chose 93 Jordan as the shooting guard for my GOAT starting 5. Now moving on to the small forward position, I have 2013 LeBron James. And this version of LeBron averaged 27 points per game, 8 boards, 7 assists, 1.7 steals on ridiculous 57, 41, and 75 splits. And those shooting splits really stick out to me, as this 2013 LeBron is the most efficient version of LeBron, shooting 57% from the field and 41% from 3 on very good volume. That's really a standout factor for 2013 LeBron. Also, his defensive impact. This year he was the MVP, and he finished second in the defensive player voting. And he was an absolute force on the defensive end. He could really guard 1 through 4, and he could guard 1 through 5 if it was a small ball 5, making him one of the most versatile defenders not only in the NBA, but also in NBA history. And it doesn't hurt when this version of LeBron is also the peak athletic LeBron. You can go find highlights of 2013 LeBron literally jumping over players and having his head at the rim on dunks and alley-oops. It's absolutely insane, and I think 8 years later, people actually forget somehow how good this version of LeBron was. Now that may be due to his great longevity, as his 2018 run was really great, and he was great in the 2020 playoffs. But when it comes to the eye test watching the player on both ends of the court, nothing matches 2013 LeBron and his overall impact on both ends of the floor. Also, a big reason of why I chose this LeBron James is because he only really has one flaw in his game, and that is free throw shooting. But even that flaw for 2013 LeBron is not as great as it is for other years. He shot 75% from the line, which may be below average for a superstar, but still, this version of LeBron James was virtually flawless. Also, when it came to the clutch time situations, this version of LeBron showed up more times than not, and the games I look to for that clutch gene are Game 6 of the 2013 Finals. LeBron had like 14 or 16 straight points to bring the Heat back, and that would end up with Ray Allen hitting a clutch corner jump shot. And in Game 7, LeBron had 37 points and had a dagger shot over Kawhi Leonard. So all of those reasons are why I would take 2013 LeBron as the starting small forward in my GOAT lineup. Now at the power forward position, I have 2003 Tim Duncan. In my opinion, this is the best version of Tim Duncan, and this is by far his greatest playoff run. As in the playoffs, he would average 25, 15, and 5 with 3 blocks a game on 53 and 67 splits. And Duncan led the Spurs team in points, rebounds, assists, as well as blocks, and he was the do-it-all power forward for that San Antonio Spurs team. And if you want to know how good Duncan was this year and how hard he carried the Spurs, if you go round by round and look what Duncan led his team in the first round, he led them in points, rebounds, assists, as well as blocks. In the second round, he led them in points, rebounds, and assists. In the conference finals, he led them in points, rebounds, assists, and blocks. In the finals, he once again led his team in points, rebounds, assists, and blocks. And one thing that gets overlooked with Tim Duncan is his great defensive impact. He was the defensive anchor for this Spurs team. Yes, they had other good defensive pieces, but when it all came down to it, Tim Duncan was the anchor for the Spurs defense. And I think Duncan's rim protection gets a little overlooked, as he was a great rim protector, and he was awesome in the NBA Finals, averaging 5.3 blocks per game, the highest in NBA Finals history. Also, one thing you love to see is a big man who has a signature go-to move, and Duncan had the patented bank shot that was automatic anytime he shot it. And I think that's one thing you look for in a good power forward, someone who can impact the game in every facet, and 2003 Tim Duncan is exactly that power forward, and that is why I chose him as my starting power forward in my GOAT lineup. Now, last but not least, we have the center position, and I decided to go with 1995 Hakeem Olajuwon. And it was very close between 95 and 94 Hakeem, but I went with 95 due to how he played in the playoffs, averaging 33 points per game, 11 boards, 4 assists, 1.2 steals and 3 blocks on 53, 50, and 68 splits. And this version of Hakeem could do it all on both ends: a great passer, a great scorer, a great rebounder, an awesome shot blocker, and his defensive impact was probably the best in NBA history, Maybe Bill Russell had a better impact, but 95 Hakeem is pretty tough when it comes to defense. Athletically, he was still a great player. He may have lost a step compared to 93, but he was still a great defender and a great athletic player. I think the one thing for Hakeem that was at its peak during this run was the post moves he had. Hakeem, in my opinion, is the most skilled big man of all time. I don't think it's a controversial statement. If you go back and watch the film, he had the up and unders, the ball fakes, the spin moves, the reverse pivots. He had everything you could possibly imagine for a big man. He was very similar to Kevin McHale with all the fakes and all the moves. And I think when you combine those moves with being 7 foot tall and having an immense defensive impact, you get the best center in NBA history. So that's a pretty straightforward reason as why I would take 95 Hakeem as my GOAT starting center. Now the last thing I do want to add that most of these GOAT lineups don't have is a sixth man. And for this sixth man role, you can go in a lot of different directions. You can look for a defensive stopper, a defensive point guard, a great shooter, a stretch four. You can go with a lot of different things. But for my sixth man, I want a player who's unselfish, a great scorer, and very efficient, while also being an underrated defender. And that's why I went with 2017 Kevin Durant. And 2017 KD in the playoffs averaged 29 points per game, 8 boards, 4 assists on ridiculous 56, 44, and 89 splits. And adding KD to this lineup, that's basically a cheat code, and it's an added bonus to an already stacked offensive team. And I think KD's defensive impact, it can be a little overlooked. He can really guard 1 through 4. I would say 2 through 4 very effectively. 1 and 5s are pushing it, but KD with his length and his speed, he can try to guard 1s and 5s. In this lineup, he wouldn't be asked to, but it's definitely something he's capable of doing. Now, when it comes to the scoring department, this version of KD was an effortless scorer like he always was, averaging 29 points per game on ridiculous shooting splits, and KD is probably the best 3-level scorer in NBA history. He can shoot the threes, he can shoot the corner shots, the mid-range, the post. He's a great finisher. He has the total package for a great scorer. And if someone like Steph or MJ was having an off night, you could bring KD in off the bench. He's going to give you 25 points per game on over 50% shooting, which is invaluable for a sixth man. So that is why I would take 27 KD as my sixth man in my GOAT lineup. And that right there is the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope my reasoning made sense. And if you have your own GOAT lineup plus a sixth man, I would definitely be interested to see in the comments below. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.